So I talked about query fan out and going from one search to many searches. This is a really important concept to understand. And again, this creates a really amazing opportunity for smaller sites. So with query fan out, this new ranking mechanism, one user query turns into dozens of synthetic subqueries that are effectively personalized to the user. These types are reformulation of the query, comparisons, related queries, implicit queries, entity expanded, and personalized. And I think that last one is the one that influences it potentially the most. So when we go from one to many, ranking for that main keyword, which was, one of the big ways that we measured success in SEO, is now not a guarantee that you're going to become part of the AI answer to the criteria that matters for that user. The person who answers that best, or the site that answers that best on the passage level, is the one that gets into that finish line there. So Google automatically personalizes those results. So if I'm searching for project management software, it's going to tend to give me ones that are appropriate for an SEO agency versus a development agency. But when you use ChatGPT Deep Research, it actually asks you for refinements on how you want to guide the direction of that search. And that gives us some clues on what type of content to create to get shown in those journeys. So AI acts as this personal assistant by leveraging the user embedding that it has on its, especially Google, that the embedding that it has based on the user's past behavior. So what it knows about you, then that influences what's retrieved. It influences those fan out queries, how it's ranked and what gets cited. And, similar to how SEO didn't, had personalized results, I think the results are even more personalized with AI search because the user embedding affects the type of fan out queries that are performed, therefore assembling a different corpus in the answer. So for example, if I'm searching for best payroll software, which is a massively valuable keyword, Google may be changing or adding the keyword Workday versus Rippling for global payroll for heads of HR of healthcare companies because of what it knows about that user. And we're going to be talking and sharing resources for how to create a comparison strategy along these lines. And we're actually going to be giving away a notebook agency engagement to one of you guys to create these comparison pages and try the truth alignment framework with us. So stay tuned for that. So the impact is essentially, we have now all these synthetic queries used to assemble this answer. So you've got to be authoritative for these subqueries and not just that main keyword like we used to be in the past, right? And, the LLMs need to generate these fan out queries, or else it can't really assemble a great answer. So we have to address what these subqueries could be. And a lot of that comes down to knowing what matters to our ICP because of how personalized those fan out queries. So instead of just trying to, generate a predicted list of fan out queries, then optimizing those pages regularly for SEO, that's a very inefficient way to do this. It's much better to understand the things that matter to your ICP and make sure that the LLMs reflect that accurately. So it's similar to auto-suggest keywords because auto-suggest is also personalized. And we're going to cover tools to replicate and understand these queries. And even, this, you can see here, for example, if I'm searching learn how to code for beginners from scratch for free at home on your own, these are the kinds of, personalized questions that people ask. And by the way, if you want to see directly fan out queries, Perplexity in its steps actually tells you straight up what they're searching to generate that answer. So we're assembling this custom corpus, comparing the passages on your page, not just the pages themselves. Your content is helping the AI think and validate its reasoning path to answering that question, and understanding what the typical reasoning path for these journeys is important to, to getting your brand mentioned there. So LLMs are essentially comparing the passages on your page in these 1 to 300 tokens against all the other passages that are relevant. They reason through them. And when your chunk, so to speak, your passage supports a logical step in the AI's answer chain, it increases the likelihood that you're going to get cited as a source. So Mike Keene created a query fanout simulator called Qforia. And I searched again, best global payroll software, which we're working on with a lead right now, actually. And we can see that it has generated different types of queries: implicit, entity expanded, comparative, and that we see things like, ADP versus Workday, global comparison, global payroll for enterprise, affordable for a more conscious user, pricing and plans, etc. One query becomes many queries, and understanding, the themes of these fanned out queries for keywords that matter, will effectively influence your content and your passages to get retrieved more often. So we can actually uncover specific fan out queries in ChatGPT search. So I'm going to share my screen here and do a live demo of how to do this. So let's hope that it goes well. But effectively, what I've done is I've created something called the AI Search Network Analyzer, which is a GPT that will analyze an output of what's going on in your browser. So what we're going to do here is just open up ChatGPT and search for something like best global payroll software. And ChatGPT is going to go ahead and do this web search. And when it's doing this web search, it's creating these fanned out queries to effectively try to answer one of the things. And you can actually see Papaya Global, which was one of our clients, is ranking there. If we inspect and go to the network tab here, what we can do is take this string at the top and paste it into this window. Actually, we have to refresh, paste this into the window, and then open up this response tab. And here we can see all of the steps that ChatGPT is going through and the information that it's collecting when it goes ahead and does this exercise of trying to answer the question. And then if we go over to the network analyzer, which is this link right here, we can paste in that output, and it's going to break it down into kind of a digest of what's going on here. So this is going to give us a report on that main query that I searched for best global payroll software. It explicitly states the fan out queries here. So a few really important things to note, right? It's looking for recent information. So that recency is part of the back-end prompt that essentially ChatGPT is doing. So it's looking for things like specifically for 2025. So let's say if you have a comparison page, it's advantageous for you to call that like ADP versus Workday June 2025, because you're more likely to get pulled into that result. And it's also, again, looking for comparisons, which is a huge important thing. And comparisons actually help the LLMs and make their reasoning more efficient. So there's a reason why LLMs want to drive comparisons. And we're going to be breaking down the notebook agency strategy for comparisons, and then actually doing it for one eligible course member here and their brand. It also gives you kind of an executive summary of what's going on in that search. So you'll get a link to the network analyzer and all that kind of stuff at the end of the session 1, and you can feel free to try that out for yourself. There's a full note that details this entire process and has a video on how to do it. So again, with Perplexity, we can actually see the actual queries that Perplexity is performing to create their corpus and their answer. So again, you see 2025 here, which is common theme, and you see comparisons, right? So niching down on comparisons by product feature and ICP and creating, quite frankly, a ton of potential pages is going to be really important. And we're going to show you how to create a GPT brain about your company that will fuel that content. There is sort of easy ways to do that, and then there's more complex ways to do that.